I'm going to drop the attendance link into the chat one more time for those of you who haven't got into the attendance link. All right. Welcome to the February mentor training for teachers working with mentors, working with teachers in their first year in the profession. It's February and in March, it always feels better. So March is right around the corner. So we're getting through the winter. All right. So as a reminder that in a perfect world, you do 3 visits into your mentee's classroom. Remember that the mentoring partnerships are different as far as when that happens. Some of you might prefer to have a sub for the time that you go into your mentee's classroom. Some might do it during your planning time. Just know that it looks different. But there is a sub coverage available if you choose to do it that way. So for your mentees visits, it would be good if you could plan a February or March and an April. And I know many of you are already getting those planned. So thank you very much. In February, if you are in elementary, it would be good to see ELA in February, maybe math in March, and then maybe writing in April. If you are a middle or a high school or a SPED teacher, it would be good to see a different students or different class periods or seeing something different every time because the dynamics of different groups change. So just talk to your mentee and see if they're open to you seeing a variety of different content areas and a variety of different class periods during those 3 classroom visits. Also, if you decide to use sub-coverage, feel free to reach out to me with the date, and there is a process, and the process, this 4 steps of the process is there in front of you. So just know that the first step is to reach out to me with the date that you plan on being out of the classroom. Okay, so with no more further ado, let's get into tonight's or this afternoon session. We're really going to be talking about engagement tonight. Remember that the lesson look-fors allow you to look for those 4 big ticket items in a lesson. The learning target, engagement, checks for understanding, and closure. So tonight we are shining the spotlight on engagement. Know that there are 3 kinds of engagement. There's behavioral engagement. Behavioral engagement is when students, are students doing what you ask them to do? Are they on task? Are they focused? Are they exhibiting the behaviors that you're expecting from them during the lesson? Effective engagement speaks to how students feel about the lesson. Do they like the topic? Are they interested in the topic? How do they feel about the topic? So effective engagement is really about surveying kids and finding out how they feel about the lesson. Last is cognitive engagement. So this kind of engagement is all about learning. Did the students learn what was intended? Was the learning target achieved? Domain C in the Charlotte Danielson framework looks at engagement in this light. Did the student learn what was intended for them to learn? For the lesson look-fors, it would be good to frame engagement in this way. What activities did the teacher employ for the students to learn the target? So I just wanted to give you a little background information about those 3 kinds of engagement. And again, our Charlotte Danielson framework on page 71 looks at engagement in that cognitive lens. Now, engagement is kind of a loaded term, and I think every teacher has their own perception of what good engagement looks like. Charlotte Danielson in the frameworks encourages the beginning, middle, and end lesson design. This is a pretty generic and a pretty good place to start. All lessons should have a recognizable beginning, a recognizable recognizable middle, and a recognizable ending. And the lesson shouldn't be rushed, having a good pace all the way. So I'm going to give you a minute to read what page 71 says about how Charlotte Danielson frames engagement. And as you're reading through these, think about how this affirms or contrasts your perception of what you think is good engagement. So I'm going to give you a minute to read through those 5 bullet points. Also, if I'm dropping the attendance link into the chat again, if you logged on after we got started. Okay, so that's how Charlotte Danielson frames engagement on page 71 in what I call the white book. That white book, every teacher, mentor, mentee, every teacher in the district should have a copy of that white book. The reason why I like that white book is because not only does it give a good friendly descriptions of each of the domains, each of the components, and each of the elements of the evaluation model, but it also gives teacher descriptions in each proficiency level. There's a description and a teacher example in unsatisfactory, basic, proficient, and distinguished. So if your mentee or you do not have one of those white books, feel free to reach out and I'll be sure to get you one. Okay, on to the month of February. These are the suggested topics for discussion during your weekly meetings. To support engagement, I've included some information on a variety of lesson designs. Remember that each mentee is developing their own teaching style, so it may look different from your preferred lesson design. So next week, the week of February 9th, we're going to be revisiting parent conferences or IEP meetings. The week of February 17th is designated for that classroom visit debrief. You may or may not have made your classroom visit in February next on the week of February 17th, but I have devoted some time for that in case you have. And as always, the week of February 23rd is about reviewing the reading, and I will share those big ideas in the reading with you later on in the Zoom. Okay, so that is February. Okay, so let's start drilling down to each one of the weeks. For the week of February 9th, again, we're going to be revisiting parent conferences. If you are a SPED teacher, this is a good opportunity to revisit IEP meetings. Yeah, the parent conferences are coming up again next week on the 12th and the 13th, and you'll want to revisit the fall conferences with your mentee. And it is worth a conversation to reflect on fall and what might change for the February conferences. Now your mentee has already done their conferences already for the first time, so it'd be interesting to see what they're going to change when they do it the second time. This month, we'll also be talking about lesson design and engagement, and it is good to expose your mentee to different lesson designs as they build their own pedagogy and style. So for this week, we'll be looking at beginning, middle, end, and I do, we do, you do. Okay, so when you think about, again, that Charlotte Danielson evaluation model, page 72 in the white book at the basic level suggests that there is a recognizable beginning, middle, and end to the lesson. That goes for any teacher in the district, whether you are are a SPED teacher or you're a general ed teacher, all lessons should have a beginning, middle, and end. So that is one lesson design that all teachers should be adhering to. Also good to know about is the I do, we do, you do, and then the y'all do lesson design. So Science of Reading encourages this instructional model, and it does have quite a bit of research behind it. If you or your mentee is not familiar with the I do, we do, you do, it's really all about that guided release of responsibility. It's all about the teacher models. That I do is that teacher responsibility. And that we do moves into guided practice and collaborative work among the students. And then as the teacher models gives students an opportunity to try on the skill, working collaboratively or doing some guided instruction, then that release of responsibility it falls to that you do, where students would be doing independent work. There is research to support an added step, and it's called Y'all Do, which allows for collaborative work with other students. The teacher models I do. Students practice under the guidance of the teacher, and or students work collaboratively with a partner or in a group, again, under the guidance of the teacher. And that is the we do or the y'all do portion. This model shifts the learning from teacher to students through the we do scaffold. That we do, that collaborative work is always that scaffold. What I really want new teachers to take away is that the we do is really a scaffold between modeling and independent practice. So we do and y'all do is a critical part of any lesson. So whatever lesson design that your mentee has chosen to employ in the classroom, it's important to know that that guided practice and that collaborative work is super important. Okay, so I wanted to include some SPED-specific lesson designs as well. For SPED, direct instruction is super important. Beginning, middle, and end, as well as I do, we do, and you do, can certainly apply to SPED classrooms. However, direct instruction is the bread and butter of SPED teachers. In the context of Science for Reading, it also has been a proven method for student learning. Similarly to other lesson designs, the teacher is introducing new content, providing guided practice with feedback, and addressing misconceptions before moving the student or groups of students to independent practice. Last step is always evaluating and reviewing for internalization of the content. So then teachers just do it all over again with a new concept, and the cycle goes round and round. Also SPED specific, a workstation gives another opportunity to learn or practice a skill. Remember that students with IEPs need multiple opportunities. Direct instruction, discrete trial training, and workstations provide those multiple opportunities to learn. And the last SPED-specific lesson design I wanted to talk about is ABA, which is the acronym for Applied Behavioral Analysis. ABA is a way to teach behavior as well as academic content. It uses a methodology that breaks the skill into smaller parts, teaching each part individually until mastery before introducing another part. So this breakdown of subskills is called discrete trial teaching, and it can be very successful. So again, these are the lesson designs that are specific to SPED. And do talk with your mentee about all of these lesson designs, whether you're general ed or whether you're SPED, so that your mentee has these methodologies as a resource to them. Okay, moving on to the week of February 16th. Again, this week, we're focusing on engagement, so I think it's good to talk with your mentees about additional lesson designs. So those additional lesson designs are Madeline Hunter and the Hourglass. So we'll talk a little bit about those. Remember that your mentee is developing a teaching style, and we want them to be strategic in their lesson planning and, more importantly, implementation of their lessons. Okay, so going back to that classroom visit, before we move into the lesson design, I wanted to give you another example of what the lesson look fors could look like. Remember that when you do your classroom visit, you're using this form as an opportunity to just jot down those 4 big ticket items. And I'm not asking you to scribe everything they said. I'm not asking you to evaluate them in any way, shape, or form. You're just documenting these 4 big ticket items, and then you're really spending a lot of time on documenting what is going well in the lesson. And then you'll scribe 1 question. So this particular lesson it looks like the learning target was produce and write digraphs. The engagement piece was they were doing choral responses. They were writing words on whiteboards. The checks for understanding were simply using the whiteboards, thumbs up, thumbs down. And then the closure was just an easy teacher reiterated 4 digraphs. And then you'll notice that there's as many things in the went well box that can fit. And so I really do encourage you to find as many things that are going well as possible in that classroom, so that you can give your mentee that positive based feedback. That if you look at the feedback triangle in the right hand corner, that mentors should be doing that most often. You want to be giving as much positive based feedback as possible. So on this particular lesson look for, you'll notice that what went well, 100% participation, positive feedback to specific students, teacher was checking all the boards, and the lesson was going at a fast pace. Now, the question that the lesson look for form calls out is which students need more work on digraphs. Remember that question gives you an opportunity to scribe something, so that the debrief, the discussion that you have after the lesson goes the way that you want it to go. Remember to be your mentee's cheerleader and give them lots and lots of positive feedback, and ask that 1 question that will take the conversation in a direction that you want it to go. Okay, so that's another example of a lesson look for. Also, I'll take the time here to note that when you do your classroom visit, you want to share the lesson look for with your mentee. You can print it, you can show it to them electronically. This particular form, that is, I do not require that you upload that into your drive. That is the lesson look for information and the lesson documentation on this form. That's between you and your mentee. So do not feel like you have to share that with me in any way, shape, or form. That is confidential information between you and your mentee. The only thing that I might ask is that you might have some conclusions, you might have some comments, you might have something that you might post on your Foursquare for the week of February 16th, but do not feel like you have to upload or document the lesson look fors in your folder. Just an FYI. Okay, moving on to the 2 lesson designs for the week of February 16th. Yeah, good old Madeline Hunter. This is the model I used in my teacher prep 25 years ago, and I do think it's still relevant today. This lesson plan is timeless because it incorporates those elements that Hattie found to be impactful in his research. John Hattie's work synthesized all the education research up to that point when he did his research. So remember that anything over a 0.4 suggests over average impact on learning. So when we look at Madeline Hunter, the first step is that anticipatory set. So connecting to prior knowledge has a 0.93 impact on student learning. So you know that connecting to prior knowledge as an anticipatory set is a successful way to start a lesson. When you think about objectives and the learning target, what do you want students to know or be able to do? Teacher clarity has a 0.75 hinge point. So again, anything over a 0.4 suggests over average impact on learning. So teacher clarity is going to impact student learning. Direct instruction or modeling has a 0.6 hinge point, 0.6 impact on learning. Checks for understanding, 0.7. We know that that's a successful practice that impacts learning because it's over that 0.4 hinge point. And deliberate practice, independent practice, you always want them practicing skills. It has a 0.79 impact on learning. And last but not least, closure has a 0.75 impact on learning. So yeah, this is an oldie but goodie, and each one of these steps in this lesson plan, research shows has an impact on learning, is still relevant today, and affects learning. So I've always called this the hourglass approach, but it's also called the workshop model. The hourglass approach is a variation of Madeline Hunter's approach in which small group instruction is incorporated. Hattie's research unveiled a 0.47 effect size for small group instruction. So you go from whole group instruction to small group, then back out to whole group again. So the anticipatory set, the learning objective, and modeling input happens during the whole group instruction. Those small group occur as a result of checks for understanding, differentiation opportunities, while students return to whole group instruction for closure and reflection. And I wanted to take the time on the February session to provide some resources on Kagan and just engagement in general. So these are some resources for you to share with your mentee if you want. The district has done quite a bit of PD on Kagan structures. The whole idea behind Kagan structures is getting 100% of students engaging in the content. Doing a Kagan structure or strategy prevents students from hiding in the classroom. Every student is held accountable for the learning. Kagan uses all these elevated vocabulary, positive independence, individual accountability, equal participation, simultaneous interaction. Really, it boils down to the expectation that 100% of students participate in the lesson, and the Kagan structure ensures that all students do participate. So I'm gonna, if you are watching the recording of this, you can go back to the email, and there is a link that provides a variety of Kagan structures that might be of interest to your mentee. I'm also dropping it into the chat for our live participants. So I just dropped a variety of Kagan structures into the chat for you to peruse. Appointments, that's up in the upper right-hand corner, are another way to partner students and get them moving around the classroom. Again, that expectation that 100% of students participate in the lesson. So the appointments are set the classroom up for success in partnering. So the teacher would take this form and send the students off to get a 12 o'clock appointment, to get a 9 o'clock appointment, a 3 o'clock, a 6 o'clock appointment. So during the day, when there is when the teacher decides that they would like to do a turn and talk or do a partnering activity, in response to the lesson at hand, then the teacher would just say, okay, go find your 12 o'clock appointment. And so the students would get up, go find their 12 o'clock appointment, and then you have a structured partnership right there ready to move forward. And so I'm going to drop that resource into the chat for our live participants. And you can, if you're watching the recording, you'll find it on the email. And last but not least, I love a stop and jot. And a stop and jot is just a fancy Post-it note where during the lesson, if the teacher wants students to reflect on something, or they want them to react to a statement or make a note, then they would cue the students to stop and jot. And so it's another modality to engage students in content. I mean, turn and talks are great, Kagan structures, appointments, those are all great and fine, but having a variety of different modalities for students to interact with the content, and that stop and jot ensures that 100% of students are processing the content or doing doing the activity that the teacher is asking. So again, for our live participants, I'm going to drop a link to the stop and jot, and for those who are watching the recording, you'll find it on the email. Okay, now our next activity that we're going to do on this Zoom is we are going to watch a video. It's a 3-minute video, and in light of engagement being the focus for tonight, for this session, as you watch this 3-minute video, write down, stop and jot the engagement strategies that you see the teacher employ in the lesson. It's 3 minutes. The learning target is to write a complex sentence, and then I have a sample of the lesson look for in connection to this 3-minute video on the next slide. So let me go ahead and play this video. If you're watching live, it would be great if you could type in engagement strategies as you see the teacher use them in the video. If you're watching the recording, do a stop and jot.
Let's read this bottom model sentence.
The teacher reproached the students because they were disrespectful.
What type of sentence is this sentence? Jennifer?
It's complex.
Complex. Can you tell me why?
Because there's an independent clause and a dependent clause.
Thank you. What is our dependent clause?
Because they were disrespectful.
Okay. When you write your sentence, you will be writing a complex sentence. Thank you, Jennifer. We have our spelling word, reproached. Can you identify, can you make connections with the words in our sentence to help you define reproached?
Disrespectful.
Because they were disrespectful. Disrespectful is an excellent clue. Brody, can you give us the definition of reproached?
To give a lecture and correct what they were doing wrong.
Oh, okay. So you're saying to correct. So if we put correct in there, the teacher corrected the students because they were disrespectful. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our word reproached and we have our word persevere. Your challenge is to come up with a word or come up with a complex sentence with the word persevere or reproached, and you will be underlining the dependent clause, just like I showed you in our model sentences. It looks like we're finishing up. A's, please share your sentence with your partner, and B's, you will share right afterwards. Go ahead. Can you verify what the sentence you have on your board? Is it complex? to help make sure it's complex, why don't you underline your dependent clause? Now look at your spelling word, persevere or reproached, and circle it. Label the part of speech. Is it a noun or a verb? Label your spelling word. Okay, can I have a volunteer to share their sentence? Ethan?
The teacher reproached the bully because he was picking on a smaller kid.
Excellent sentence. Why don't we as a class read Ethan's sentence?
The teacher reproached the bully because he was picking on a smaller kid.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I noticed some of the engagement strategies that the teacher employed in the video. I saw choral reading. I saw the teacher questioning. I saw students using whiteboards. I saw the students doing a partner share. I saw them underlining the dependent clause, and I saw them labeling the spellings word part of speech. I saw them labeling those parts of speech. So those are the engagement strategies. And I also, it was pointed out to me in the last, in the 245 session that also the students were being asked to connect to prior knowledge as well. So that was another engagement strategy that she was asking them to do. So let's look at the lesson look for in connection to that video that we just watched. So what was the learning target? Write a complex sentence. What were the engagement strategies that were employed to get to that learning? Students were choral reading, they were using whiteboards, they were underlining, and they were labeling. And then the closure was that choral read of the complex sentence. So what went well in the lesson? You'll notice there that box is filled up with as many things as I could fit in there. Students were participating. There was a partner share. It was well planned out, and then they were utilizing vocabulary. The question that I had after watching that video could have been, how were you checking for understanding? Because I didn't see the teacher doing a whole lot of checking for understanding. And it could have happened outside of that 3-minute video, but that may be a question that would, that question might spur on a good discussion. So that's another sample of a lesson look for. And last, on the week of February 16th, talk with your mentee about how they could use their instructional day to their advantage. They may or may not know that they get an instructional day. Let them know that they could create a planning day for themselves or go visit other teachers at other schools, or, really anything. The only caveat is that they would need to check in with their administrator. It's always a good practice to let the administrator know what they're up to, and let your mentee know that how you've used your instructional day in past years. So that might help get their creative juices flowing. And also reiterate with your mentee that certified teachers get 1 instructional day per year. If they don't use it, they don't build up over time. It's either a use it or lose it. But then I guess it's not a lose it kind of thing. I guess if teachers don't use their instructional day, they go into a bank. But the important thing is that they only get 1 per year. So do talk with your mentee about how they could use their instructional day. All right, for the last week, the week of February 23rd, as always, it is a debrief of the reading. When we think about the first days of school, I'm hoping that the big takeaway from the reading is that the learning target, what you want students to know or be able to do, should not be a mystery to the students. I always tell teachers that it's perfectly okay to announce it at the beginning of the lesson. It all starts with the learning target and then matching the engagement activities to the learning target. Another takeaway is that Wong uses the learning triangle. On the left-hand side, you see that it has objectives, assessment, instruction. That's fine. I like to use the lesson look fors, but it's the same concepts, and each one of the corners on the learning triangle match up with the lesson look fors. Objectives matches up to learning target, assessment matches up to checks for understanding, instruction matches up to engagement, and closure is just good lesson design. For the 10 critical components, it was chapter 7, instructional strategies. And the big idea from the reading is that using age-appropriate activities as well as a variety of instructional strategies and activities will boost learning, keep students engaged, and most importantly, interested in learning. So those are the big ideas. And there is a screenshot of those 3 big ideas on the Foursquare for the week of February 23rd. Okay, we're getting to the end here. There's the March reading in the first days of school for general ed, and no surprise, chapter 8 for the 10 critical components. That's for March. Our next Mentor Zoom is March 5th, and someone just brought to my attention in the last session that March 5th is a early release. So we don't normally have early releases on Thursdays. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and have the Mentor Zoom as planned. Hopefully, you can make it. If you cannot make it and you're doing something with your staff, know that you can just watch the recording. I don't want to make a change this late in the game. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with the Mentor Zoom on an early release. Just know that if you can't make it, it's no problem. You can just watch the recording. And last but not least, make sure you have your February Foursquares. And then there's the February checklist that you're going to preview with your mentee. So I just dropped the February checklist into the chat box. If you're watching the live version, know that it is on the email. So if you are live, make sure you have your February Foursquares. If you have them and you feel like you're ready to rock and roll, you're built for success in the month of February, just give me a thumbs up and feel free to log off. If you are watching the recording and you do not see your February Foursquares, reach out and I will help you find them. I know they're there. I checked, but if something has if something has gone wrong with your drive and you just need a little support in organizing your drive, that's fine too. Feel free to reach out. And with all of that said, I wish you a great month of February and I'll see you in March. Have a nice evening, everyone.